Have you ever heard of the town of Carnia? Because I can't find it anywhere, and I'm trapped in it. Let me let me explain. I like to go driving a lot. I live in Colorado, and I often have my weekends spent driving around in the Rocky Mountains. I'm a bit of a loner. I don't really go out much, and so most of the time, if I want to have fun or clear my head, this is what I end up doing. Um, this last week, I decided that I was going to do that again. I had no particular destination in mind, and in Colorado, most of the time, you can't really go anywhere for too long without seeing another sign of civilization, and so it's never been an issue until today. I found myself driving along a highway that I've driven over a dozen times through the central western part of Colorado when I found a strange left turn I've never seen before for a county I'd never heard of. Lenora County 1 Road. I found that odd, as I've never heard of Lenora County, Colorado, but hell, it was a new place to explore, and while the road was unpaved, it looked like it was well maintained. So I made a left turn and expected to eventually reach into the same washboarding and curves and everything else of these, you know, roads. And I had no idea how my little Honda Civic was going to fit in it, but adventure's adventure, right? I was driving on that road for a little while, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The road was almost too well maintained. Again, no washboarding of any kind. The thing that also started to give me pause was the fact that while the road looked completely untouched, like no one had driven on it, which is strange because there had been rainfall and everything else, and surely if a vehicle had driven over this in the last 2 weeks, you could clearly see it. But there was nothing. No sign that every other vehicle but mine had driven on it, and to make sure, I had stopped the car and looked behind me, and sure enough, you could see my tire tracks clearly outlined in the dirt. There was something else that started to freak me out as I was standing outside my car was the fact that I didn't hear anything. Normally, driving through the Rockies, especially if you stop to go take a piss or whatever, you'll listen to the wind in the trees, signs of wildlife, and anything else, but there was nothing. No wind, no birds, and despite the fact that I had been driving for a good 20 to 30 minutes, there was no sign of wildlife, no bunnies, no deer, nothing. I just couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. And I decided that I wanted to just keep going. So I got back in my car, and that's when eventually I reached a T intersection. The T intersection had a sign that said Lenora County 1, pointing to the left. I'm guessing a continuation of the road, and then to the right, it said nothing but Carnia. I had never heard of Carnia, and I decided that if it was a town, which it seemed like it was, then maybe I could ask around and see how far Lenora County 1 went, and if it was worth turning around. So I made what I thought was the logical decision. I made a right. It wasn't long until I had stumbled upon a city center of sorts. On the left side, there was some kind of bar and some kind of rundown gas station from the 60s. And on the opposite side was some kind of small business center. One of those old ones where it's just a bunch of businesses side by side, made out of wood, and nothing looked modern. It was all very rustic. But I didn't think much of it, and I kept going. But as I kept going down the road, it just seemed like it was a neighborhood. There were no outlet signs on each left and right, and then eventually going straight, I had reached another no outlet sign. So it was clear the road I was on was a dead end. The strange thing was, as I'm driving through this neighborhood of some town I've never heard of, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. It just kept getting worse as I kept driving because while these houses looked pristine, good driveways, the driveways looked untouched, the grass was kept, houses looked clean, there was nothing. There was no sign of life. There were no vehicles in the driveways. The same road I was driving on looked completely untouched. And something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong with all of this. It just seemed a little too untouched. So when I had reached the final, as I kept going straight and I finally reached that no outlet sign, I just decided to go back into the city center or town center. I don't know what the hell this is. I just try to go back to it. The buildings looked like they had power, and the main bar had an open sign. And so I decided that maybe I should try and go and try to see if there was at least someone to talk to. I pull into this little dirt lot right in front of it, and I walk inside to nothing. Sure, there were tables. They had the condiments, your standard little restaurant / hole-in-the-wall bar, but there was no one. There was not even a jukebox in the background, no TVs blaring the latest sports game. Just this completely stocked bar and restaurant with no one in it. The only thing apart from me was the bottles of alcohol behind the counter and the bottles of condiments on each table. And it just all was too clean. It was really weird, and I just couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched or that I shouldn't be there. And that's when I decided to get back in my car. But as I turned the car on, that's when I noticed that there was a TPMS error. It said that one of my tires had low air pressure. So I turn the car off and I get out, and sure enough, on the passenger side, both tires are completely deflated. Now, I should explain that this car of mine is new. The tires should be perfectly fine. It's a 2025 Civic. And yet, both of them are completely out of air. I only have one spare. The hell am I supposed to do? But I decided that maybe I shouldn't panic. I push it down. I try to call someone, but that's when I notice I have no service. I'm trapped here. Part of me is contemplating going to some of the other restaurants businesses across the street, but those seem empty, too. It's just like the bar. And I have no idea what to do. I keep occasionally getting one bar. And with that, I decided to maybe Google where I was at to see just how far I was. But looking at Google Maps, there's no town where I am. On like the Google Earth or whatever the hell, there is nothing here. My blue dot is in the middle of the forest. There's nothing around me. I decided to maybe Google Carnia, Colorado. Nothing. It took a while, searching for bars or anything else, but again, there's nothing. And eventually, my next Google search, when I eventually did get service again, was Lenora County. Lenora County Road. And even nothing. None of this exists. And I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched.